All right, welcome to this deep dive. And today we're tackling something pretty big, unlocking your potential. We're looking at some excerpts you sent over from The Science of Being Great.
Oh, yeah, this was a good one.
It is. It's a blend of philosophy, self-help, and even spirituality. And it's not just about, the usual success stuff like climbing the ladder or making tons of money.
Right. It's definitely not your typical, like, how to get rich kind of book.
Exactly. It goes way deeper than that.
Yeah. It's more about tapping into, like, a deeper power, a wisdom that's already inside you, and then using that to achieve, true greatness. And that's what we're going to try to do today, pull out those insights and see if they can actually apply to your life,
So one of the first things that really jumped out at me was this bold claim that anyone can be great. Literally anyone.
Yeah, they don't hold back on that one.
No, they don't. Background, genes, circumstances, none of it matters, according to this book. Now, is that realistic? I mean, come on. We all face limitations, right?
Well, the book addresses that head on. They use this analogy of people being like bulbs in a basket. Like, on the surface, they might all look the same, but each one has this, unique potential just waiting to, like, bloom.
Okay, so, we all have that potential, even if it's not obvious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think about, like, Abraham Lincoln. The guy had hardly any formal education, but he became president during one of the most crucial periods in American history.
Mm-hmm.
Or George Stephenson started as a coal miner, but ended up revolutionizing transportation. These were people who defied their circumstances and achieved incredible things. So the potential is definitely there. It's just about...
Yeah, about realizing it's there and tapping into it. But where does this power come from? What are we talking about here?
Okay, so The Science of Being Great says that real power comes from connecting with something they call cosmic intelligence. They even refer to it as, like, the mind of God. I know that might sound it's a little out there, but think about it this way. Have you ever had, like, a gut feeling that turned out to be right?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Or like a flash of insight that seemingly came out of nowhere?
Yeah.
The book suggests that those could be like little hints, glimmers of our connection to this universal knowledge, this deeper source of wisdom that we can all tap into.
So it's not just about hard work or skills. It's about
something more. It's about connecting with this wellspring of knowledge that's available to everyone, regardless of their background or circumstances.
That's pretty profound. So does this wisdom just kind of download into us? Do we just sit back and wait for it to happen?
No, that's where the work comes in. The Science of Being Great actually outlines some pretty practical steps that we can take to, prepare ourselves to receive this power, to become more receptive to it.
Okay, so give me some examples. What do we have to do?
Well, for one, they emphasize the importance of overcoming fear and worry. Those feelings of overwhelm and anxiety.
Oh, yeah. I definitely want to avoid those. So how do we overcome that?
Well, the book suggests that fear and worry kind of cloud our judgment. They prevent us from seeing clearly and from accessing our full potential.
That makes sense. If you're constantly worried and afraid, it's hard to think straight, let alone make those bold moves to, really achieve something great.
Right. And it also talks about cultivating certain virtues.
Yeah.
Like overcoming greed, envy, pride, those kinds of things.
Yeah, at first it seemed like a list of be good rules, but I felt like there was something deeper going on there.
Oh, definitely. This isn't just about being morally upright. It's about clearing out all the mental and spiritual clutter that might be blocking our connection to this source of power.
Yeah.
Think of it like, aligning your inner world to attract greatness into your outer world.
So it's not enough to just want to be great. You actually have to work on yourself. On your thoughts, your motivations, your
whole being, yeah.
That's quite a challenge.
It is. And speaking of challenges, The Science of Being Great has this perspective that might be a bit tough to grasp at first. It argues that the world in its current state isn't broken or decaying. It's perfect.
Wait, perfect? Come on. What about all the problems, the conflicts, inequality, suffering, all of that? How can you call that perfect?
Well, they use a really interesting analogy to illustrate this point. Imagine a train that's gone off the tracks. It's not a bad train, it's just...
misplaced.
Exactly, misplaced. And in the same way, the things that we perceive as problems, they might actually be opportunities for growth, for, course correction.
Okay, so it's about shifting your perspective, seeing those challenges not as roadblocks, but as chances to learn and evolve.
Yeah, and that shift in perspective, it leads directly into the next key point, the power of thought. And this is where things get really interesting.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more. What's so special about this book's take on the power of thought?
So we're talking about the power of thought, right? How the science of being great really dives into that.
Yeah, and I think that's a concept that resonates with a lot of people, the idea that our thoughts can shape our reality, but it's also one that's like easy to misunderstand or oversimplify.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's not just about like slapping on a happy face and pretending everything is great.
Right. It's deeper than that. So what makes this book's approach different?
Well, the science of being great emphasizes that it's really about what we dwell on, Like those thoughts that we keep coming back to, those are the ones that have the most power to shape our reality.
So are you saying that, like, if I constantly focus on negative things, that's going to make it more likely that negative things will happen?
Well, it's not quite that simple. It's not like some kind of magical law of attraction where, like, if you think about $1 million, it's going to fall out of the sky. But it does suggest that our dominant thoughts create a kind of filter through which we perceive the world.
Okay, so, like, if I'm always thinking about problems and challenges, I'm going to be more likely to notice those things in my life. And maybe even miss out on opportunities because I'm so focused on the negative.
Exactly. And it works the other way too, right? Like if you're focusing on possibilities and solutions, you're going to be more likely to spot those opportunities and take action. The book really encourages us to think big, to engage with those meaningful questions that push us beyond our comfort zones. Questions like, what is justice? What does a truly great life look like? Those kinds of things.
Those are some big questions. And it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day stuff and not really make time for that kind of deeper thinking. But then the question becomes like, okay, we're thinking all these great thoughts, but how do we actually translate that into action? How do we make those thoughts a reality?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And luckily, the science of being great doesn't just leave us hanging there. It emphasizes that thought alone isn't enough. We have to act in a way that reflects our new understanding.
So it's like walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. It's about bringing that intention of greatness into everything we do.
So what does that look like in practice? Can you give me some examples?
Well, the book suggests that we start small. Like, instead of waiting for some grand opportunity to prove our greatness, we focus on doing everything with a spirit of excellence, even the mundane stuff.
So it's about like being present in each moment and doing our best, no matter what the task is.
Exactly. And it's about those little things, too, like being kind and considerate to others, approaching our work with integrity, being mindful of our impact on the world around us.
So it's not about achieving some external measure of success. It's about cultivating that inner state of like alignment and purpose.
Yeah. And the science of being great suggests that as we do this, we naturally start to attract those opportunities to make a bigger impact. It's like that saying, bloom where you're planted.
I like that. It's about focusing on our own growth and development and then like letting those ripples spread outwards. So this whole idea of like connecting with cosmic intelligence, is that something we can like actively cultivate? Or is it more about like surrendering and letting go?
That's a great question. And I think it's a bit of both. The science of being great talks about the importance of stillness and contemplation, of creating that space for those deeper insights to emerge.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like in our busy world, we're constantly bombarded with information and stimulation, and it's hard to hear that quieter inner voice.
Exactly. It's like trying to hear a delicate melody in the middle of like a rock concert. You need to turn down the volume of all that external noise to really perceive it.
Yeah.
The book even suggests that practices like meditation or just spending time in nature can help to cultivate that inner stillness.
Oh, yeah, I can definitely see that. It's about creating that space to just be, to listen, to connect with something beyond our usual thought patterns.
Right. And it also talks about the power of gratitude. Not just going through the motions of saying thank you, but really cultivating a genuine appreciation for like all the good things in our lives, no matter how small they might seem.
So it's about shifting our focus from what we lack to what we already have.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that the science of being great suggests that gratitude can actually act as a kind of bridge between our individual minds and that universal intelligence we've been talking about.
So like when we're in a state of gratitude, we're more open to receiving those insights and guidance.
Yeah, it's like we're tuning our frequency to be more in harmony with that cosmic energy.
I like that analogy. So it's not just about feeling good. It's about tapping into a source of wisdom and creativity that can help us solve problems, make better decisions, and, maybe even manifest our desires.
You got it. Speaking of manifestation, the science of being great really goes deep on the power of thought to shape our reality.
Okay, but this is where I get a bit tripped up. Like, if our thoughts are so powerful, Why do bad things still happen? Why do we experience setbacks, failures, even tragedies? If we're all connected to this source of goodness, why is there so much suffering in the world?
That's a big question, and one that, philosophers and spiritual teachers have been grappling with for centuries. The science of being great doesn't offer any easy answers.
Yeah.
But it does suggest that our understanding of good and bad is often limited by our human perspective.
So it's like that train analogy again. What we see as a disaster might actually be a necessary part of a larger process that we can't fully comprehend.
Right. The book reminds us that our true nature, our essence, isn't defined by these temporary experiences, whether they're positive or negative. We are, at our core, expressions of this divine intelligence. And that part of us is always whole and complete no matter what's happening in our external world.
So even in the midst of challenges, we can still access that inner power and wisdom to navigate those difficulties.
Exactly. And this is where the book brings in the concept of faith. Not blind belief, but trust. Trust in the inherent goodness of the universe and in our own ability to overcome whatever obstacles we might face.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we reconcile this idea of a perfect world with all the very real problems that we see around us? War, poverty, injustice. Those things don't feel very perfect.
Well, that's where the idea of evolution comes in. The science of being great argues that the world isn't a finished product. It's a work in progress. Just like humanity has evolved from its beginnings, so too are our social and political systems, our understanding of morality, even our consciousness itself.
So instead of seeing those problems as evidence that the world is broken, we can view them as growing pains, as opportunities for us to learn, to adapt, and to create a better future.
Yes. And the book suggests that we each have a role to play in that evolutionary process. By cultivating our own greatness, our wisdom, compassion, creativity, we contribute to the collective upliftment of humanity.
It's like we're all part of this grand experiment, and each of us has the potential to influence the outcome.
What a great way to put it. And the science of being great goes on to say that we're not just passive participants in this process, We can actively shape our reality through our thoughts, beliefs, and actions.
But doesn't that feel like a huge responsibility? It can be overwhelming to think that, each of us is responsible for creating a better world.
I hear you. But the book offers some encouragement there, too. It reminds us that we don't have to do it all at once.
Yeah.
We certainly don't have to do it alone. We're all part of this interconnected web, right?
Yeah.
Every act of kindness, every effort to improve ourselves, every step we take towards living a more meaningful life, it ripples outwards and contributes to the collective good.
So it's not about becoming some lone superhero who's going to single-handedly save the world.
Right. It's about focusing on our own sphere of influence, our families, our communities, our work, and striving to embody those qualities of greatness in those areas.
That makes it feel much more manageable.
And the science of being great suggests that as we do that, we naturally attract opportunities to make a larger impact. It's not about seeking out those opportunities, but about becoming the kind of person who those opportunities are drawn to.
Okay, that makes sense. And I think it also ties back to that idea of trusting the process, of having faith that things are unfolding as they should.
Exactly. And that brings us to another important point that the science of being great emphasizes the importance of finding joy in the journey. It's not just about reaching some distant goal. It's about cultivating a sense of purpose and fulfillment in each moment.
So it's not about delaying our happiness until we achieve some arbitrary definition of success. It's about finding ways to enjoy the process, to appreciate the little things along the way.
Right. And that brings us to one of the most profound and perhaps controversial concepts in the book.
Ooh, you've got me intrigued. Tell me more. What is it?
Well, the science of being great suggests that the ultimate expression of greatness is to serve God.
Wow, that's a big one. And probably one that's going to raise some eyebrows, especially in our, increasingly secular world. A lot of people are skeptical of organized religion or even the concept of a higher power. So how does the book address that?
Well, it's important to understand that the book isn't talking about serving God in a traditional religious sense. It's about recognizing that there's this divine intelligence that permeates all of creation, and that we are each expressions of that intelligence.
So serving God in this context is less about adhering to religious dogma and more about aligning ourselves with this universal force for good.
Exactly. And the book suggests that this alignment happens naturally when we cultivate those qualities of greatness that we've been discussing: wisdom, compassion, creativity, service, and a deep trust in the unfolding of life.
So it's about becoming the best versions of ourselves, not for our egos, but because it's the most fulfilling and meaningful way to live.
And that, in essence, is what it means to be truly great.
That's a powerful message. But it's a lot to take in, and I'm sure our listeners are feeling the same way. Maybe we should take a moment to let all this sink in.
I agree. Let's pause here. When we come back, we'll offer some final takeaways and practical tips on how you can apply these principles to your life.
All right, welcome back. That last segment, with this whole idea of serving God as the ultimate expression of greatness, that really got me thinking.
Yeah, it's a powerful concept, isn't it? But, it's important to remember we're not talking about blind obedience or like following rigid doctrines.
Right, it's not about that. So how do we make this practical? What does serving God actually look like in, everyday life?
Well, the book offers a few suggestions. It talks about aligning our actions with our highest ideals, expressing kindness and compassion, in every interaction, and striving to make a positive difference in the world, however we define that.
So it's about using our unique gifts and talents, not for personal gain, but to benefit everyone around us.
Exactly. The science of being great really encourages us to see how our individual lives are woven into something larger, like threads in this grand tapestry.
Oh, I like that. A tapestry of interconnectedness.
Yeah. Every thought, every word, every action contributes to the overall pattern.
Okay, that's a beautiful image. But let's say you're feeling stuck, uninspired, not sure what your purpose is. What are some concrete steps you can take to actually apply this science of being great?
Well, the science of being great recommends a few practical exercises, like spending some time each day reflecting on the specific qualities of greatness you want to cultivate.
Okay, so choosing a virtue, maybe courage, kindness, creativity, perseverance, and then consciously looking for ways to express that virtue in, daily life.
Exactly. It's about making it a conscious practice, a deliberate effort to align your actions with those ideals. The book also suggests regularly engaging with inspiring material, books, music, art, even conversations with people who embody those qualities you admire.
So it's surrounding yourself with those positive influences that can, lift you up and motivate you. And also being mindful of the thoughts you allow to take root in your mind.
Absolutely. Because, what you focus on expands.
Right. The science of being great talks about that. It cautions us against dwelling on negativity, doom scrolling through the news, feeding those anxieties, or letting that self-doubt creep in.
It's much harder to connect with that inner source of power and wisdom if we're constantly bombarded by negativity.
Right. It's almost like we create our own reality through the filter of our perceptions and beliefs. So choosing to focus on solutions, possibilities, that's key.
And the book highlights practices like gratitude, affirmations, and visualization as ways to cultivate that shift in perspective.
Okay, but what about those times when things don't go our way? When we face setbacks or disappointments, maybe even failures. How do we stay connected to this science of being great when things are tough?
That's where the science of being great reminds us that those experiences, they're part of the journey. They're opportunities for growth, for learning, for building resilience.
So it's about reframing those setbacks, seeing them as stepping stones, as lessons that can, help us move forward.
Exactly. And this is where that concept of faith really comes in. Not blind faith, but a deep trust in the universe and in our own capacity to overcome those challenges.
So it's about believing in ourselves, even when it's hard, remembering that we're not alone, that we have access to that, cosmic intelligence, that source of strength and guidance, if we just tap into it.
And that, I think, is the core message of the science of being great. It's not about achieving some, external measure of success. It's about cultivating that inner state of alignment.
Purpose, fulfillment.
Exactly. It's about becoming the best version of ourselves, not for the applause, but because it's the most authentic and fulfilling way to live. And in doing so, we naturally become beacons of light for others.
That's beautiful. As we wrap up this deep dive, any final thought-provoking questions to leave our listeners with? Something to really ponder, something that wasn't explicitly covered in the book, but builds upon its message.
What if this whole science of being great, what if it's not just about individual transformation, but about a collective awakening, a global shift in consciousness, a movement towards greater connection, compassion, wisdom? And what if your journey, your commitment to cultivating your own greatness is playing a part in that?
Wow. That's a powerful question to sit with. It leaves us with a sense of hope and and possibility, knowing that we all have the power to make a difference. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Remember, the journey to greatness, it's ongoing, and the power to embark on that journey, it lies within you.